Hello and welcome to the world of NDE 4.0. My name is Johannes Vrana and today is a great day because today I have the honor to welcome all of you to our first NDE 4.0 webinar. I guess as you saw in the invitation, this webinar will be co-hosted by Ripi Singh. So Ripi, welcome back to the channel.
Thank you.
Now, you're very welcome. A few words about this webinar. So on this first webinar, Ripi and myself, we will give a very short introduction to NDE 4.0. But I hope we can make this really interactive. So if you have any questions, just put those questions into the comment box and we'll try to get to them kind of immediately. What we saw, we have kind of a time lag of 10 seconds, so it might be that we are a couple of seconds behind your question, but I think that's okay. So now I will hand over to Ripi for the introduction.
Very good. Thank you, Johannes, for setting this up and making a nice event out of this. Really appreciate that. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world to this exciting conversation that we are just about to launch. Johannes mentioned this is the first one. So think about it, which means that we will have more coming up and a lot more that will follow in the next months will actually be based on the topics that come up during the conversation. We are actually interested in making it more interactive, and we want to be responsive to the topics that generate conversation, that generate interest, and address the problems that you guys are looking to solve these days.
Yeah, and bringing the whole community really together.
That's the whole idea. Thank you very much. So I'm going to go switch over to PowerPoint now. We have a few pre-prepared charts so that we can give a message that we would like to give. And within about 20-25 minutes, we would like to get into a discussion session where we will take the questions from you through the chat. You can submit the questions anytime, but we'll pick them up at the end of the formal pitch. And then from there, we will pretty much go live answering whatever questions you may have, and if we have the answer. If we do not have an answer to your question today, we will do the research and we will post those answers either on LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever we can, or perhaps during the next conversation. So let's begin with a quick overview of why, what, and how of NDE 4.0. Did I pick up the wrong page today? I just gave this one to the ASNT Piedmont section last week, so we're using the same set of charts here. I think we all know by now this topic has been discussed many times. What are the 4 industrial revolutions? But real quick, first one is because of steam, second one from electricity, third one from computers, and the fourth one is really networking. It's combining the computational digital world with the physical world. You might come across people started talking about Industry 5.0. If they're from the research environment, from the university, it's good. I'm glad they're looking at what the next revolution could be and even might help us identify how 4.0 should shape correctly. But if you hear it from commercial guys, then let me tell you that that's mainly a marketing ploy to show, oh, we know more than anybody else, right? But that the Industry 5.0 is not yet ready for prime time, is not in the application stage. From NDE perspective, over the years, over the decades and centuries, humans have used their senses to see and feel what's going wrong. And then came a little bit of a revolution when we as a humanity figured out how to amplify those, how to augment those signals, whether we do it through an optical lens or through a stethoscope or even through this fluorescent dye penetrant technique. So, in some sense, we were able to enhance human sense ability beyond a normal being. The second revolution in NDE is around the ability to see beyond the surface, whether it's an X ray to see through the object, or it's ultrasonic or eddy current, something that really human eye cannot see. The third revolution is around the digital world. Now we're taking pictures, and those pictures are on the computer. It's a digital file. You can email it, you can send it, you can zoom, pan, analyze. You can do a lot more with the digital data captured about the inside, outside, the other side of any artifact. And the fourth NDE revolution is trying to superimpose the physical world with the digital world, whether it is in visualization through augmented reality, or it is IoT based data acquisition that goes through an artificial intelligence for a feedback loop to take a proper action in the real world. So, in some sense, these are the four broad revolutions in the world of inspection. The biggest difference, and a concept that many of us miss going into 4.0, is that it's about the digital world, which at any point is a twin, is a replica of the physical world, knows through the sensors in the physical world, knows exactly how physical world is behaving, is able to analyze, is able to forecast, is able to predict, and is able to take an action back to the physical world to control it in real time. That's what makes the fourth revolution different than the third revolution, where we had modeling and simulation, but was mainly offline. And there really wasn't a loop closing back from the digital world to the physical world. A classic example being driverless car. The computer sees the entire traffic, road signs, and everything, and then takes the action back into the physical world. That's the fourth revolution. From NDE perspective, the physical methods are still the same, but the digital technologies are continuously developing. And that's what we need to focus on in this particular revolution for NDE. Now, there are a lot of technologies that we talk about. This list was 5 about 10 years ago, and now it's at 17. And in the next 5 years, we'll probably have 25 of them. We have all heard these over the years. I will not go into the details of this. And pretty much all of them have some role to play, some value that they bring into the NDE 4.0. So, with that introduction as to why we look at NDE from the different perspectives so that we can control it, let's actually discuss some of the use cases. And I would like to make this use case thing as a conversation between me and Johannes. Johannes, do you want to pick any one of these 10, 12, and go first?
Yeah, I think my heart is really about the NDE value perception. Because my eyes, up to the moment, unfortunately, and I don't think it really is the case, NDE was from some customers just viewed as a cost center. They collect all of the NDE data, and then they have their expensive system installed, they collect all of that data, they create a report, and they put that report into some archive. It's sometimes it's kind of their own fault that they cannot do, or that they don't do more with the data. They just put it into some archive. They don't use it to enhance their engineering. And that's for me the point where I see a big gap, where also we have to kind of get together with our customers to show them that actually our NDE data has more value than just for a quality assurance, good, not good decision. that NDE is actually, yeah, a value center.
Very
And if,
well said, Johannes. Very well said. I think that is a key opportunity for the NDE community to stand up and say, hey, what we are generating is not just a decision on quality, but is the data that can be used to create economic value for multiple stakeholders.
yeah, exactly. And I think I have to get closer to the camera.
Very good. And I come from a structural integrity, damage tolerance background. 20 years ago, I was focused on human factors in inspection reliability. So I kind of go to these two places over here, talking about enhancing NDE capability and improving efficiencies and effectiveness. If you can take the human factors out, if you can take things like fatigue, schedule pressure, all of those things out, you can really push what we call as POD for an NDE closer to the capability of the equipment. We have run tests in real life on human subjects, and we have been able to quantify some of the human factors. And it was very, very clear to us that if we could figure out a way to control it or reduce it, we can we can optimize the inspection program. We can extend the life of the asset. I mean, there is a tangible economic value, even if you don't use the data fully to the extent that the fourth revolution offers us. We have that opportunity.
And in my eyes, it actually also, if we collect all of that data, we can actually use that for a more straightforward approach on evaluating a POD. We don't have to do any more a POD study in the beginning. We'll just have it run for 100 components, 200 components, and our POD will update over time. And then we can say, okay, this was the POD for those components we have. Do we need to improve, or is the inspection sufficient, or something like that? And by the way, people out there, if you have any question, just jump into it. Just put your comment into the chat. We want to include all of you into our discussion. It shouldn't be just the two of us. So if you have any comment, any question, put it just there into the comment box.
So, Johannes, picking on the point that you just mentioned, the data in real time could be used to improve POD. I think you are also mentioning this, something that we were talking about yesterday, that the same data could then be used towards inspectors' skill assessment, towards performance-based inspector certification, and building the competency and the confidence within the human element of the inspection.
Yeah, for me, this is a fascinating view on NDE 4.0, which not a lot of people have talked about. And this is really to kind of get a revolution on how we do our training, how we do our certification, how we do our performance-based assessment, to show where do inspectors have a gap, where they need perhaps additional training, if an inspection could be sped up, made quicker. All kinds of ideas are coming to my head how to perhaps change this in the future, to go away from our traditional employer-based certification we have in the US, or our ISO certification we have in the kind of the remaining world, to something more something we can just monitor. And then perhaps we can even go away from those, you need a test every 5 years. If somebody is performing a good job, and the statistics show us that that person is performing a really good job, why should there be the necessity to do this 5-year retest?
Actually, Johannes, that's an interesting point, and a comparison just came to my mind. When we were in school, you study the entire semester or the whole year, and at the end of it you take the exam, and your grade was based on how you did in that exam, right? And nowadays we talk about continuous learning and continuous evaluation and continuous assessment, so that the end of the term examination has a lot less meaning. So the same thing can happen in terms of inspector certification, in terms of equipment POD thing. Does the equipment need calibration? Does the equipment need an upgrade? I mean, all of those things can be a lot more dynamic and real time, connecting the analytics around the data back to the physical world. I think that's wonderful. So this can also tie to our ability to improve NDE inspection equipment, right? Similar
Oh
things can
yeah.
be done on that side too,
Yeah,
right?
this is kind of the same feedback loop. And kind of all of this, all what we talked about is always that we take data, we convert it into some digital information, we process that data, and we come back to the physical world because we have learned something. And this is the same here with that, yeah, with the NDE equipment feedback for the NDE equipment manufacturer, so that they get a better feedback of their own equipment so that they can help you to enhance the equipment. And I'm
Yeah,
seeing some comments coming up actually. The first
fantastic.
one from Michal Stefanuk is using the dusty NDE archives and piping them back into PLM. Design improvement FEA, a good example of the value you have in mind. Exactly.
Yeah,
This is if
continuous
we,
product design improvement through NDE data mining. That's what he's talking about.
yeah, this is
Yeah,
exactly what we are talking about. And this is our idea for NDE 4.0. Now, those loops in the past, they were done already. And one of the first projects I did in that direction, we actually took a lot of ultrasonic reports and put them into a database. We had a person typing them into the database. It took that person 1 year to take those 2,000 reports and put it into the database so that we have them in a digital form. Later on, we had our own program to process all of that data, and we got great results. Now imagine, instead of somebody having typed those reports for 1 year, having them already in a digital form, having them in a form which you can directly access by a data processing unit, and then having a direct feedback to make it quicker, to make it more obvious, to make it cheaper to do something like that, because then that project back then, that was really, yeah, we already knew that this would bring us a big benefit, and it was a really big business case to do it. That's why we had the money to spend on that person. But all those smaller improvements, you don't do because it's too expensive to come to that solution. If you spend a little money in the beginning to improve your data maintenance, then later on those feedback loops become a lot cheaper.
very true. So talking about feedback loop here, let's touch upon this particular item of additively manufactured components, right? I mean, we are creating the part upfront, and it's taking a few hours to build the part. So layer by layer, you could be inspecting and controlling the process in a manner that you're now not doing, finish the entire part and then do quality inspection. You're actually inspecting the part in situ while it is being manufactured. So that's another element. Now, this could be a very traditional NDE that is applied to a 3D printing, to the additive manufacturing piece, but it's the fundamental concept of digital physical connectivity. So that fits into that system as well.
I just see that we have more questions coming up, but just sticking
Let's,
with that point for a moment, because I think it's an important point. Because what I find interesting in additive manufacturing, on NDE side, on classical NDE methods, it's mainly computed tomography which can be used. A little bit of ultrasonics, but mainly it's computed tomography because we can really look into those complicated forms. But what I also see is now we have, on the one side, we have the classical CT, but we have a second phase in my eyes, NDE, we have two phases. We have the classical NDE, and we have all those NDE sensors. And with additive manufacturing, I see that we are getting a lot of in situ inspections, a lot of using acoustic emission, using thermography, using just visual inspection during manufacturing. And then once we have all of the data captured during manufacturing, then we can kind of compare that data later on with the data from the CT and with the data perhaps from some destructive testing. And all of that putting into the same data space so that we really can compare it. So for me, really additive manufacturer components is where we really need NDE 4.0 because we need this to bring all of this data together. Okay, you want to say something to that point, or should I get on with the questions for a moment?
No, what you mentioned is very well. Let's just wrap this one up in a minute. The other piece is we started talking about drones. Bringing drones into the NDE. First thing is that it makes inspectors' job a little bit safer. We've seen places you don't have to go into a hazardous environment. You don't have to climb up the chimneys and climb up the walls. But then drones also create an opportunity because very soon, the way world works is when there's a crash, we respond to it. There will be an opportunity to start inspecting drones very soon. We are now not thinking of it, but one of these days, Amazon's home delivery, a drone will crash into your backyard, and then there'll be a lawsuit, and then there'll be a regulation saying all drones must be inspected. So we can already foresee things like that happening.
And it will be so many millions of those drones flying around.
Yes.
We really have to do that kind of in real time and in an automated way, because otherwise they will not get inspected.
And for all we know, there might be, that era of drones will have some kind of a self-inspection. They'll have sensors built in. For all you know, they might be inspecting each other. We don't know what that scenario would look like. The two drones will come and stand next to each other and inspect each other and say, we're both fine and let's just keep going. Okay, things like that can happen. Anyway, let's go to the questions from the participants now.
Yeah, exactly. So Gabriela is writing, big data analysis is not a new thing at all. We skilled our agronomics are used to SPSS for a long term. Yes, you're absolutely right. Big data analysis is not a new thing. We have done big data analysis for I don't know how many years, at least since I did my PhD 20 years ago. But I think what changes is the automation of that data processing, is the way we are bringing that data together to make it easier, to also get to the kind of the higher hanging fruits, to say that way. Because up to the moment, big data analysis was only done for the low hanging fruits where you knew that you will get a big business benefit.
So, Johannes, yeah, this is exactly. Yeah, okay. So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So what I was saying is big data is not new. Computers are not new. Data acquisition is not new. Simulation is not new, right? Dashboards are not new. Machine learning has went through three different, what we call as winters of AI. It's gone up and down, gone up and down. What is different is our ability to connect the physical world with the digital world. You remember I was emphasizing that the 4.0 means there's a physical reality, and in real time, I'm capturing the reality, processing it, and taking the action back into the physical world in real time. That is what makes this revolution different than previous. It's the application of the digital physical technologies working collectively in real time to create value. That's what is different.
Yeah. Okay, Gabriela wrote a lot more. Just getting through all the comments of Gabriela. I made the experience that these evaluations are not common in metal industry, but in agronomy. But in agronomy it is, and also in market research. So let's take that experience to cope with big data and NDE. Yeah, you are right. The big ones in marketing, they really know how to do the marketing of that data. If I think about Google, if I think about Amazon.
You were saying it was completely lost.
Oh, sorry. Okay, let's just go to the next one. Also from Gabriela, no need to type any data into a database. There is Additively in ET, which is powerful and store all the data or even put into industrial network. Yes, yes and no. If we are talking about historic data, then we need it. And those workflow systems like, I guess Additively, I don't know that one, but I see those NDE workflow system where you directly put the NDE data into such a system. They are coming up now, but they weren't around back in 2012. And that's when we had to do the. So I see those workflow system to be, yeah, a step in the right direction. Repeat?
Yeah, and nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Okay, next one. Connecting data from non-destructive testing with data to non-destructive testing can also be automated or via reading a data metrics code lasered on the product. Yes. And you're bringing up a really important point, because I think that I have seen so many places where they inspect a part, they have a 10 or 12 digit serial number printed onto that, and they inspecting it 20 times into his computer. And if I type a 12-digit number a lot of times, then we might make some errors, and then we might get some components confused. So using scanners actually to track the components we have, then that's a good thing to do. And the last comment from Gabriela up to the moment, maybe we do not need to look far abroad to see perfect high-hanging fruits. Big data analysis, Google and even YouTube do it on their best. Exactly. I think we talked about that already. Ripi, you want to say anything more to the comment from Gabriela? Ripi, can you hear me? Yes.
Google and YouTube and all the social media. The social media, whether it's Google data they capture, yes, it's big data. It's got lots of noise. It's got lots and lots of variation. And the way we handle the data and what value properly is focused on, right? So think about it. NDE data can be controlled in a sense upfront to make it relevant to start with. What happens in social media is completely uncontrolled. Bias can also generate a lot of misinformation and disinformation, and some of those things don't have to happen within the realm of NDE 4.0. So we need to learn from those guys, but not necessarily adopt. So let's be careful as to how we set up and how we control things upfront to generate relevant data for a purpose.
Yeah, I really have to agree with you on that one. I think we have to see that it doesn't happen to NDE what happened on our personal data, because we are all very happy to spread our data to everybody, but what do we little? And if I think that some of the big NDE players are currently putting out some cloud systems and stuff like that to capture all of our data for us.
Relevant to what you're looking for.
Oh, sorry, Ripi, I think we have quite a delay. Could you repeat what you were saying?
We're having a little bit of a bandwidth problem. I don't know whether it's your end or my end, but it's really jagged. I'm sorry, guys, for if you are also seeing it. Really apologize. Something not in our control.
Yeah, I think that happens having the stream at the same time as the Zoom conference.
I'm also wondering if this is the peak time between Europe and US. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find. Johannes, are there additional comments up until now?
Yes. Shamsunder actually has some comments. 2 of them to be exact. One of them is my own analysis of NDE 4.0. Is that to popularize it for industry adoption, we will have to modularize it to cater it to the specific needs.
Okay, that's wonderful. So I think Johannes and I looked at that subject last year at length, and we said, let's go deeper into the NDE4 ecosystem and look at how each element of the ecosystem can benefit from what they need. Otherwise, it becomes overwhelming. That paper has been published in the at any point you like.
Ripi, we lost you in between once more. Sorry, guys, for all of that. I think next time I will try to reduce a little bit the resolution to make it more smooth for you.
I can now see the value of 5G.
Yes, but actually not 5G. It's my landline.
I know. If we want to go to NDE folder from the inspection will be jagged. Perhaps that's why edge computing is important.
Yeah. This is a really good showcase why we need edge computing. So that we do not have to transfer everything through the net before we do the processing.
So Johannes, what else would our participants like to hear today? What's the next question you
I have and we are not able to information about all those successful stories. And I think that's unfortunately something very common in this industry with all those NDAs. We don't really learn about all of the ongoing activities, about all of the R&D, which is, I think, in some cases very unfortunate because some areas of NDE are still sorry, I lost my thread in my talk. I don't know what I was talking about. Gabriela asked, to whom will you show this Shamsunder? Yeah, Shamsunder, actually, we have already quite, we have some exchange with Shamsunder, a lot. He invited us for the ISNT session on NDE 4.0, which he organized in a fascinating way, invited a lot of interesting speakers, so I think that was a really good experience at the Indian Society. And yeah, we have some collaborations coming forward, but Again, we cannot say too much about that for the moment. That was about the last question I have currently in the live chat. And I hope the connection isn't too bad so that we can perhaps continue with some more topics. Now, Ripi, you talked about
Okay, the loops.
yes, exactly. That's what I was in my mind. Yes.
Loop, what we meant by the loop. Let's start with the simplest one, and then I'll complicate the issue over a period of 5 minutes. Okay. So think about it that you have an asset, an airplane, and this is in service, and you have a digital twin, which is in some cloud supercomputer somewhere. Right? There's a 5G connectivity between the sensors on board and the cloud, and the twin in the cloud. We capture NDE data through the IoT sensors, the relevant data, not big data, relevant data we've already pre-screened and got the noise out, and bring it into the digital twin, which already has the data from the digital manufacturing piece. And all of that is used to predict how this asset will behave in the next few hours of operation, in the next few flights. If there is any damage and you have the history of the damage since the airplane was built, you are studying the damage progression. You are deploying artificial intelligence to predict more accurately what could happen. You could run what if scenarios on the digital twin and visualize the outcome of some of those through augmented reality in a lab or in a maintenance environment or wherever you are. Use all of that knowledge about the asset to create a prescriptive program for that particular asset, which tells do this, don't do this. This is how you perform maintenance repair. If you need 3D printed spares or tools, that comes out of the entire system given to you. This closed loop is what makes the primary value proposition that Johannes started with, taking NDE from being a cost center to value creation. That's the loop. If you notice, most of the elements have been there for a few years now, but that loop is still not complete. We are not to a point where we are using it to its fullest extent because we haven't yet built all the connectivity. We haven't built standard protocols. We haven't figured out how to make that flow fast enough. I mean, just imagine even this webinar. So there is a lot more that has to happen on the connectivity technology side to convert this particular dream or vision or whatever you want to call it into reality. So there's a way to go, but we are seeing pieces of this in different sectors. Some of the companies, some of the big companies who have big money are investing to create loops of value. And it is actually possible once these smaller loops are available, the ability is much easier. Tell us about semantic interoperability. If I can have that, I can easily expand the loop. Just think about how many different loops can exist. For any asset, you go from design to prototype to production, and then it goes into service. So it's handed over from asset OEM to an owner operator. And then at the end of life, it could be recycled, repurposed, do whatever you want to do. We do NDE during the prototype, and we use that data to improve the design. Some companies, in the aircraft industry, the first few articles are full of sensors. They're just capturing performance data all the time. It may not be damage, but it is performance. In production, we do NDE for quality assurance, and that data is used to control the process, and that data is also used to improve design. Asset OEMs are actually doing these in their system through PLMs, ERPs, MES, all of those the enterprise-wide data systems. They do all of that. In service, we do NDE and then we use the data immediately. The inspector is doing something for whether rechecking the part or reconfirming or something. Operators use that data in an aggregate form over a period of time to replan the maintenance. Not everybody, but some of them are doing it. That is also visible, understandable. We used to do that for Air Force. This is the loop that's missing. But once these loops are in good place and once these systems have a way to connect and talk with each other, you can take in-service NDE data and feed it back to the design world to significantly improve the product itself. Think about the inspection piece, and we talked about that use case, how the NDE data can help improve inspector training, certification, skills gap assessment, and all that. You can also have a loop where the same thing can go back to owner operator to define in their plan, what's the training required, what class of inspectors can do what. So all of that can be further optimized. There is another NDE equipment. The NDE data from in-service can be used to improve equipment can get smarter with every asset OEM, so that the design of the next generation of asset takes into account the inspection plan, the development of NDE equipment. Here, push their performance, the ecosystem, one level up. We can visualize all this. We can if it's a question of when we will get there. There are many more loops possible. Pretty much every piece can be connected with every piece. Using to that for now to share with you that one can view NDE4 as an ecosystem where people who are operating it, people with the equipment to inspect them. And all these four parties have a lot to gain from NDE 4.0. And then, of course, there are a lot of other players part of the loop. And then, of course, there are people like Johannes and I, who make a lot of noise on the social media. We come in there to create some kind of an insignificant influence. Each one of us are dependent on others. It's a game where we all have to sort of adopt for a collective success, and that's the whole intent of all the social professional networking that Johannes and I are trying to build, because we need to bring these people together to make something happen. Everybody has to play, only then everybody will win. I think with that, I would close the formal conversation on this topic.
Yeah, and we have origins.
Fantastic. Let's take
both from Michael. First one, so I'm starting to see that digital transformation with regards to NDE is neglected as compared to the typical digital transformation, paper to CAD, tablets on shop floor, maybe because it's harder. I would think maybe it's because NDE industry is kind of special in my eyes. Everybody likes to secure their customers by using proprietary interfaces, by not opening up, by not really working together with anybody else, because otherwise you could end up buying somebody else's products. For me, that is something within the next 5 years. If some company doesn't open up their data formats or their interfaces, I don't know whether customers will still be willing to buy that equipment, because I think it's a necessity that we go to that step, that we go to opening up, and therefore I think, yes, currently digital transformation in NDE is slow, but in my eyes it will happen. And what is important for me, that I'm also in contact with some of the bigger players, not the bigger players in NDE, but the bigger players out of the Industry 4.0 environment. And I have seen that some of them are actually already working on providing NDE services or providing NDE solutions. Not calling them NDE, calling them data collection services or something like that. Visual inspections, mainly. Supported with some AI. And once you can buy such an NDE system from IBM, and he's not calling it NDE, he's calling it something that, using sensor for engineering, then why should somebody buy it from an NDE company if they can buy it from a big player? People tend to trust the big players. So I see if we as an NDE community don't wake up, then pretty soon some of the big players will kind of take over NDE. Perhaps NDE will not be called NDE anymore, but just sensor technology or something like that. Ripi, you want to add?
No, you said it well.
Okay, I will have you answer the next one. Same one
Oh,
from
no.
Michael.
No.
At one company, we had gigabytes upon gigabytes of C-scans. Digitized, not digitalized. Hard task.
Hard task, yes. But, let me put it this way. What is hard and what is easy is all relative to the value you see in it. If you see significant value out of it, it will not look hard. You will put money and resources and people on it, and it will be done. It's, when people say this is too hard, to me, they are saying, I really don't understand what's going to come out of it. I'm not sold that we should do that. And that's one of the battles that NDE 4.0 will have at the moment, right? Now, that's not to diminish that it is not hard. I mean, yeah, going forward, data acquisition can be automatic. It can feed stuff into where it needs to be, associate metadata upfront. It's controlled in a manner. And if I have to go back 10 years, I'm picking up the databases, which are all, which did not capture everything we needed to capture. Yeah, it will be hard because now you may not even remember, or what was noted in paper somewhere and you have to correlate it. So there could be hardship, but again, that hardship is relative to the value you are looking to extract out of it. That should not be an excuse. Okay, I always look at it. Does it make sense to do it? If it makes sense to do it, then do it. It's not hard. If it doesn't make sense, don't do it. Don't do it just because you think it's easy, and not do it just because you think it's hard. Figure out the value proposition and qualify the concept for investment of resources.
Yeah, and I think what Michael was talking about, the step from digitization to digitalization, that's a very necessary one. Not to just use digital to store it on some hard drive. That was third revolution. We really have to get into, okay, how can we improve our processes using the digital data? And that's digitalization. And then perhaps even go one step ahead and come from the digitalization, which is mostly within your own company, which is mostly for some local improvements you're doing, to jumping between companies, establishing interfaces between companies, at the same time clarifying data ownership, talking about data sovereignty, to see, yeah, how can we give that to our customer, to our supplier, that he can do more with the data and go from a small loop to bigger loops and bigger loops. And for sure, this has to be taken kind of stepwise. We cannot start with, let's create the big picture. No, we have to start within our own world and then expand. And then, because once we start in our small world, we will see the benefit of it. And once we see the benefit of the small, then we can go to the bigger loops, which in my eyes actually will be even more valuable.
Yeah, and it gets easier as you establish the loops, you get experience, you get the technology in place. Now it's only a question of connecting it with the different stakeholders.
Yeah.
So Johannes, we are coming up to the top of the hour. We got 5 more minutes. Let's see who wants. Are there topics, hey guys, we would like to know, are there topics you are interested in learning more so that our next session could cover that?
So perhaps in between you are writing, perhaps in between you type us what you want to hear us discussing next time. Let's get through the last couple of questions, and most of them are, no, actually all of them are from Gabriela. So let's kind of take them together. So first one, seems also that producers do not even like to test at all because they are worried to cope with their own not being perfect. Sometimes this is a very hard thing to recognize. Yes. That's why some people also don't like to go to the doctor and find out that they could have cancer before it's too late for a treatment. Yeah, I think there's not a lot
That's
more
a
to say.
typical that's a typical management attitude and not a leadership mindset.
Yeah.
A forward-looking leadership mindset wants to know what they're dealing with and deal with it rather than shove it under the rug or ignorance is bliss. NDE exists because ignorance is bliss in terms of defects is not true.
Yeah, this is, but I really see it in the industrial environment that nobody wants to see NDE finding anything. They don't want to do NDE because it could find something. I even heard terms like, oh, you only inspect or test indication into the component. Like there wasn't a defect in the component before it was tested. It only appeared due to us testing it. Yeah, this is a lot of. Next one from Gabriela. Big players sell whole production system and neglect NDE. We had that topic today. You know what we are speaking about. Gabriela, we have to get in contact, pretty sure. Perhaps you can get in contact with us afterwards. The same for everybody else. Just contact us on LinkedIn or on any other platform, and we will get into kind of some conversation. Gabriela, next one. Seems that the big players are not really high skilled in some techniques. Yes. Yeah, the domain knowledge of some of the big players is not the best one, but you can build up domain knowledge. You can just hire people or you can buy some companies to build up that domain knowledge. But I would rather have it within our NDE community than within the big players.
So, Johannes, a couple of minutes are left. Can we make 2 important announcements over here before we go to?
Yes. So we will take care of the.
I think we want want people to know that we have the first international conference on NDE4 coming up. Stay tuned for that. There is a way you can register, you can attend, and afterwards we have to figure out a way to put the content also available to a wider audience. Stay tuned for that. There are 3 journal special issues that had come out on this topic, so feel free to look them up. There's a materials evaluation in July last year, then R&DE came in October last year.
Ripi, do you want to blow it up to full screen? We are currently also seeing your emails in the background.
Why are, you know what? Okay, this technology is funny. Stop share. Why did it share the wrong screen? Hey, it was
Yeah, and
sharing the wrong screen. Okay.
perhaps what I just coming back 1 second to the conference, you can already see the speakers online for that conference. Um, and we will have 4 panel discussions. So kind of like what we did today, but more, yeah, actually, we will have all the speakers of that particular day discussing. So those
Yeah.
could become really interesting discussions. And actually, the same as here, you will have the opportunity to ask questions using the chat. And then we have a facilitator who will ask the panel discussion participants actually to answer those questions. So I think that this conference will really be an interesting thing. And I think all of you who are interested in this topic, you really should participate in this conference.
Yep. Thank you.
And on this slide, we have to update because there is no more call for paper for the Journal of NDE special issue. That one is closed. Actually, most of the papers are published on that special issue by now. Yeah, that's good. But we already have the next call of papers for the Journal of NDE coming up for NDE 4.0. And that will be in conjunction with the conference, because most of the speakers of the conference will actually publish in that upcoming special issue of the Journal of NDE. But all of you out there can also publish something in that special issue. So if you want, I think in a couple of days, there will be the next special issue announced of the Journal of NDE. So if you have something, just put it into the system and we will get it.
And last is, 3 important documents are likely to come out before the end of this year. There'll be a handbook of NDE 4.0, which is being pretty much led by Norbert, who first coined the term NDE 4.0 in 2016. And then Johannes and I are putting whatever we have learned in the last 3 years in a smaller, easy to carry read book. Plus, we have built a larger group of experts under the banner of ICNDT, which will bring out a guidance, a management guidance on how to take your journey of NDE 4.0. It will be an ISO style of document, a much shorter guidance on how to go about doing that. So all of this is coming up pretty soon here for the community to benefit from. And then, of course, YouTube channel, you're already tuned into that. We will put today's content also onto that channel, and there'll be more coming up. Johannes puts stuff on this channel every week. There's been a lot that has already gone, and feel free to enjoy that free, as long as we're keeping it free for now. That closes the commercial piece of it as well, Johannes.
Yeah, so thanks to everybody for attending this webinar. We hope it was interesting. I kind of monitored during our webinar the viewers, and it kind of stayed. We reached a maximum peak of about 20 people, but it stayed quite constant over all the time. So it seemed to be quite interesting for all of you. We got a lot of questions. We are sorry that we couldn't answer all of them, but we will try to put them into our next webinar. Let's see when that one is. And we're pretty sure that perhaps it will not be only the 2 of us, but perhaps it will be 3 or 4 people really doing here the live discussion and giving you different aspects to all of this topic.
Yeah, we could, Johannes, we could research some of those answers and also post them on our LinkedIn 4.0 group. And guys who are listening to us today, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also please join our LinkedIn group. It is called NDE 4.0. It's not NDT 4.0. It's NDE 4.0. We'll send you that link. Feel free to connect with us directly as well if you like. But if you want to join the group without connecting with us, that's fine too. With that, I would say thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks to all of you. See you soon. Thank you and bye.
Bye.